live. Hello, this is the video. You're about to listen to a podcast, the live stream version if this is the video. Otherwise, check it out in audio. All right, Mike, you got an intro ready?
I'm always confused why it starts before the.
Well, I just haven't set up the production yet to like, because
Yeah.
we could do it live. First of all, I need that connector. And then I think I can set up the rest now to just put the show in the can as is. That would be a cool thing to do. That's something worth.
I think you're just being manipulated, Mike.
Me?
Yeah.
I think Bo just likes having it. It's an Easter egg.
Well, yeah, all right.
Except no one would want to see it.
Part of the other
All
issue is that there's about 10 views per video, and so I don't. People
on
come
one sec,
start
one
watching us, and then we'll step up our game. All right, our video game that is, because our audio game is tight. All right,
PewDiePie!
this is more of a Tuco Salamanca thing, but cool. Speaking of trolls, what a troll, PewDiePie. He said if he got to 50 million subscribers, he'd delete his channel.
But he deleted his secondary channel.
Yeah. It's funny how we both know this news, and it's like, I don't even watch PewDiePie. It's a massive troll-worthy piece of news to report.
Everybody knew that's what was going to happen.
Yeah, but
Just
they subscribed. I didn't subscribe. I was like, well, screw that guy. It sounds dumb.
All right.
But I guess 50 million people think otherwise.
PewDiePie!
Okay, they've made fun of Actually, PewDiePie was on South Park. They were making fun of him, and he was on the show. So, anyways. All right, good, bad, or bullshit episode. It's 177, gents. We're almost celebrating our second centennial. Does that make sense? No. Centennial refers to time. Our second set of 100.
I think it refers to 100. Yeah.
Yeah. No, then it is our centennial. Is it linked
No,
to a year?
It was 22 episodes away.
I
That's
said
like a year
I
almost.
said we're getting close. We're getting close. We can see it. We can see it on the road ahead.
I'm just
right.
getting my bicker warmed up.
All
That's
right.
all.
Yeah, it's going to be... The force is strong with this one today. All right, episode 177 records in about 5 seconds. So, you guys ready to go? Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
All right, 5, 4.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast, providing quality reviews on random topics since 2013. That almost seems like a long time ago, but it's not really. My name is Mike Hodgins. I'm one of your 3 hosts on this show, along with Mr. Crofton Steers. Hello, Crofton.
Hey, Mike. How's it going? Hey, listeners. What up? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Did you mean Happy Holidays? Jeez.
Sure, whatever.
Come on. You're offending my atheist sensibilities.
Yeah.
And of course, our other co-host on the show, Mr. Bo Schwartz.
Hello, Michael. Hi, Crofton. Happy holidays
What?
to you. And
Yeah, happy
happy
holidays
holidays
to you,
to Merry Festive. Is it Merry or Happy Festivus for the
Happy
rest of
Festivus.
us out there in good, bad, or bullshit land? Welcome to yet another episode. This is the episode before Christmas, or do we get one more in the can? Oh, we still have one more, I think.
Do we take a Christmas break?
We usually do a Christmas special.
we already did Christmas. I can't remember what our verdicts were.
That took a turn. Yeah, no, I just there's a lot going on. You know, it's Christmas, but also, like, as you guys know, and we've talked about on the show, we're big into Star Wars. I think all 3 of us. There's a new Star Wars movie coming out, and I'm not at the point yet where my enthusiasm is dampened for new installments of Star Wars. Although that may come, but right now it's still like, oh, looks good.
I'm hearing
It
good
doesn't-
things.
I for some reason it's flying a little under my radar right now. I know I'm gonna be excited when I finally decide to go see it, and I've watched the trailers. I'm like, yeah, it looks good, but I don't know. I'm a little bit like I was way more stoked about the last one
The
that came out
Force
because it's still
Awakens.
like Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and the old. But now it's getting into kind of the peripheral stuff, and I'm sure I'm gonna really enjoy it. But it's still just a little bit. I'm kind of glad because I don't
there's
want to
gonna
be
be
caught up in
some-
the initial
Mike,
waiting in line or whatever.
there's going to be some Darth Vader.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing.
And
They
James
realize
Earl
they can
Jones,
always
I
have
think-
Darth Vader.
James Earl Jones is voicing, I believe again.
Yeah, he is.
Still alive?
But yes, he is also, which
Well,
makes sense
Given
because he did voice.
2016's deaths,
Well,
Um,
there's 2016 is like we're losing a lot of new
But
people.
that's it. So this one takes place between episode 4 and 5. And as much as I enjoyed the reboots, like I did enjoy them. You guys may remember my big beef was that you found out what happened to all your favorite heroes in the past 30 years. And after the perfect happy ending at the end of Return of the Jedi, their lives pretty much sucked. And now there's all sorts of new problems, and they try to make up reasons of why there's a new Death Star, and then why that has to be destroyed again, and all that sort of stuff. And
Really
like,
only one story, eh? There's just a Death Star. And you
yeah,
got
it's gotta get blown again. And so yeah, for me, as much as I enjoyed the ride, I really felt like there was a lot there that didn't have me super excited. Whereas this, it fits in neatly to the trilogy that I most am excited about, the original trilogy. It's about the theft of the original Death Star plans, and it seems to be like it's made mostly seemingly for an adult audience. I think it's rated PG-13 or whatever, which is not like most Star Wars movies. So yeah, tentatively excited. Looks pretty cool. But yeah, I'm stoked. Wanted to plug me some Star Wars.
It's also kind of funny how they essentially took the line "many Bothams died" to get these plans into an entire movie. That's
No, correction.
That's the wrong
nerd
one.
Alert,
Yeah.
Nerd alert. That's the next Death Star.
That's Return of the Jedi.
You nerded it up there.
Yeah,
Okay,
This
this
is
was the
this
original
is
one. So
this
it
is the
wasn't
one-
Bothams that died.
No, the Bothams died for the Return of the Jedi Death Star.
Okay.
The ones that died this time, and believe it or not, they'll probably get their own spin-off movie eventually. Maybe Rogue One 2, Botham's Death Edition. I don't know. But this one is the one where the plans end up in R2-D2 at the beginning of A New Hope, right?
Okay.
So that's that one.
So-
No Bothams.
So
Maybe.
do you need to
So
take?
does that mean Princess Leia's going to be in it?
I bet you here, this is a prediction. I bet you some sort of CG bastardized version of Princess Leia, or
No.
the back of Princess Leia's head with the buns or something like that.
No, I bet you it'll be Carrie Fisher reprising her role as Princess Leia.
Well, she wore that helmet in
Elderly
Return of the Jedi.
Carrie Fisher.
You know who is going to be in it? Her dad, Jimmy Smits, Bail Organa from the prequels. He'll be in it.
Oh.
As Jimmy Smits?
As
Well,
Jimmy Smith. I mean, he
It's a
kind of
crossover with NYPD Blue.
he kind of basically is Jimmy Smits in whatever he is. Like
Yeah.
even he has a pretty long stint in Sons of Anarchy as like a Latino sort of pimp. And it's still just Jimmy Smits. You just like you want to cuddle the guy. It's just like, oh, come here, Dad.
Yeah, everyone
give
loves
me
Jimmy
a hug.
Smits.
But Crofton, do you need to take a break at all to go to the doctor to put your nose back in place? Because you shoved your glasses so hard up your nose on that nerd correction.
Yeah, that was a deep nerd correction.
Yeah.
I was wondering where he was going with that diss. Yeah, it was. Yeah, whatever. Nerd alert. I nerd raged a bit. I'm sorry.
No, I stand corrected.
You do. If only it was so easy to get him a GBB as it is to get him a nerd stuff. So yeah, this will not be, I guess, our final podcast of the year. Is that what I'm getting from you guys? We'll be back.
We don't know. It's tentative. This could be your Christmas send-off, whatever we happen to do today, or we might be back next week. We'll have to see. It is falling on a Thursday, as always, when we record. It's the 22nd, so I don't know. We'll have to plan it off air and leave our folks in suspense.
Whatever. Why don't we get to a random topic and start going through the minutiae of administrative details, for God's sake?
That's good. That's
Yeah,
true.
let's have
We
our
should
show
do
meeting
that.
right on the air. All right, Mike, pull it. Oh, there he goes. Oh, all right. What's the topic today, Michael?
The topic today is sexual abstinence.
Oh,
Had Bo with the word sexual.
I know. I had a little like up, and then when it came to the abstinence, I was like, "Oh, that's no fun."
So we know where you stand on that. It's
Abstinence.
bad.
Well,
Bo
that's
says it's
that.
bad.
No, that's the initial reaction. Sometimes things that aren't good for us, or that we, sometimes things that, refraining from things that we want for a higher
I
cause can
feel
be
like
good. Like
okay,
that fifth piece of pizza that's singing my name. Perhaps
yeah,
saving it for tomorrow might
yeah.
be a
Just
better idea.
abstain. I feel like this
Pizza.
when I was reading that sexual abstinence and being like, sometimes I feel like my brain does this a lot with things, which is always an annoying response to be like, what's the context? Because I feel like it's like a sexual abstinence. It's like based on the context, good. Based on another context, bad. I mean,
Good for toddlers.
Well, so wait.
Yes,
Okay.
I would agree with
Bad,
that.
bad for maybe married couples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or people trying to conceive. It'd be like,
True.
you got to drop the abstinence if you want to have a baby.
So
I- you
well,
know-
I think the key thing that you can lynch it on though is that it is a decision that you make for yourself, right? Like you can't force somebody to abstain because that's not even abstinence. That's like
I just am
imprisonment or...
trying to, again, my context point was like, are we talking about this in the context of like, you know how in the States, like the sort of abortion debate and whatever is often largely people will say like, wow, we just need to teach young people, they just need to abstain from sex till they're older. We shouldn't be teaching sex ed because we should just be teaching abstinence. You always hear this, and then everyone else counters with being like, have you met a teenager? And yes, we should teach sex ed. So is that the context? It's like sex ed versus just sexual abstinence.
Well,
I guess so. It's got to be something like for when you're a sexual active age onwards, and the choice. It's about making a concrete choice to abstain from sex for a finite period. Often that finite period is until marriage. So I'd say like, can we say it's the abstinence of sex prior to marriage? Is that a fair?
No, it's kind of iffy because let's make this a little more personal. I'm known on the show, I think, somewhat by reputation as a bit of a hedonist, and I'm just
So
like,
you
yes,
like- you
have
like
sex,
sex,
prostitution, good, spread the love. Eat all that pizza.
Prostitution's all about love, but let's
No,
not
but
go
eat
back.
all that. I mean, pleasure yourself. If there's a choice between staying away or pleasuring yourself, whether it's food, video games, sex, drugs, joining the hive mind, whatever it might be.
The shallow things in life, the superficial
Well,
things.
that's pretty
Grab at
reductive way of saying that they're all shallow. I don't think sex is shallow. I think sex can
You
be
don't? It's
meaningful.
shallow.
It can be very meaningful and very deep emotional experience for someone, or two people, or five people,
it can
right?
be.
I mean, orgies.
And it
Why
cannot
not?
be.
The point being, the reason why I'm making it personal is I would say that I am in a period of sexual abstinence right now. That's where I would want to get personal with it.
Okay, well, I would again. Context is important because I feel like
Sure.
I spent much of my life in a period of sexual abstinence, but it wasn't probably by choice. It was just by.
But let's say okay.
So I would
understand.
say, Bo, are you being like, I'm not having sex under any circumstances, or have you just entered a period of life where you're not
all right.
having any sexual opportunities, therefore
I
you're
don't look
abstinent?
like John Cena, all right? But
John Cena.
He looks like a freak, by the way.
no, but the point being is like I'm attractive enough to find a sexual partner. I don't lack confidence in this regard. I have had lots of sex in my life. I don't feel that there is a reason outside of myself that is preventing me from doing this. I live by myself, so I don't have anyone controlling my behavior in that way. I don't have medical issues. I may not have come out and said I'm making a decision to be abstinent, but we've talked about this during my period where I left my previous job to find some. I left a relationship and a job around the same time. I very deliberately wanted to avoid getting into a serious relationship, but also avoiding more casual relationships because I know how I am. If I do get intimate with someone, I do tend to get attached, and I wanted to not have that, and so I never said, guys, guess what I am? I'm abstaining for whatever for some highfalutin reason. But that's effectively what I've done. If you have to analyze it. I've made a
Yeah.
choice, and
So
as a
I
result,
would
I'm
say that.
abstaining from sexual activity.
So abstain is definitely an action verb. So like you could say some people like when Mike was talking earlier, I think what he's talking about is a sexual drought, which is just like
A
where
long dry drought.
I mean, those are bad. Clearly, a
where
drought is
yeah,
bad.
where
When you
things
want
are
sex and can't get it, that's bad.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's but it's not, farmers aren't like, "Oh, I'm going to drought it up this season." It just, that's
Farmers?
outside of their control. Where to abstain from something is something that is in your control, right? It's
Yes.
yeah. So when you started this story, at first I was like, no, you're in a sexual drought, this is an abstinence. But then when you started explaining the context, I was like, huh, maybe it is sexual abstinence, which is, to me the act of abstaining. And I understand how you're like, oh, I'm an adult and all this, and so it's a little bit different than but like I generally associate it with premarital sex, especially amongst like teens and religious folks. And like soon as the topic was drawn, and this is your gratuitous CBC plug of the day, I saw it made me think of this article I saw on CBC about these.
How the
I get
tables have turned.
in the States, there's this movement where like, and it's super creepy. Like I cannot get over how creepy.
Oh, I know where you're going. Yeah, go ahead.
Where fathers and their daughters do like this abstinence pledge, which is essentially like if you look at photos of it, it looks like they're getting married. Like so they're all dressed up in fancy attire and walking down an aisle and then like holding hands, and then essentially the daughter is like, I pledge to abstain from getting boned until marriage, and then they sign some sort of book and whatever, some sort of agreement. I think it's an agreement of some sort that
Is it a
there's,
legally binding agreement or is it a
no,
ceremonial?
no, it's not. It's not a legally binding agreement, but it's just like they've turned it into
It's like a
a
pledge.
giant ceremony between father and
Ugh.
daughter to be like to and so
It's
Is it
so
is it
bad. It
only
just
women?
seems like such a misogynistic, patriarchal bullshit thing that men who don't like the idea of younger men having sex with their daughters are exercising control over their daughter. It just seems so bad to me that it bug. Aside
well
from the creep factor, which is present.
and see no because of that and you're right, it is like fathers controlling their daughter's sexuality, and it's funny, the interviews in the article very much were like saying like, I'm not trying to control my daughter's sexuality here. It's just that, and then some sort of explanation that is exactly that. And I think like when I hear the term sexual abstinence, I think of it in a negative way because I think of these things, and I think of these things like what Mike addressed earlier, which is it as a pushed alternative to practicing contraception, right? So being like, oh yeah, condoms are the devil. You should just not bone, like I mean, I find that's a negative approach to a negative view for me on the term
Yeah,
of sexual abstinence.
it's interesting because it makes it kind of a hard topic to approach in that context, because it's like, if again, I associate it highly with, just like what you said, is a counterpoint to sex ed and teaching kids about sex and STDs and safe sex and whatever, and the movement that's trying to get that out of schools and whatnot. So I see it as that counterpoint to that. But if you just take it on its own without that context and just being like abstaining from sex, I mean, I'd be like, there's less baggage associated just with an act of like consciously saying, you know what, I'm just not going to do this. Just like abstaining from alcohol or drugs or anything that you might think of as like, I'm just going to choose not to engage in this for X period of time. And I feel like, because to some extent, abstaining from anything is requires an act of willpower, and I think there's maybe something to be learned from doing that in any given context. I mean, Bo says he's a big hedonist, but I think to some extent it is good to abstain. You shouldn't always eat that fifth slice of pizza. You shouldn't always have sex when the opportunity arises, and so, but I feel like that topic, I can't just fully rate it without that context of the whole sex ed thing, because I really find that a curious thing how it's ongoing. Like in Ontario, the province we live in, it's like a big thing where they keep trying to get sex ed taught earlier and earlier in schools into elementary school, and there's this big backlash against a lot of parents that want it out of there. And even though you see all these studies said that the earlier you engage with children about sex and about how it works and about how to do it safely, then it tends to have kids waiting longer before they get into it. And usually when you just don't tell kids anything about it, then they have sex when they're like 13 and then someone's pregnant or someone has an STD or something like that. So I don't understand, like the abstinence practice abstinence movement seems to be one of maintaining ignorance among kids who are in I say kids, but young teenagers and kids who are in a period of exploration and learning, and they have to learn this stuff, right? And they can learn it the hard way by getting an STD or getting pregnant, or they can learn it in a safe way where they can make informed choices about it. So I just find it so difficult to be like, how am I going to rate this thing as just a statement or as a movement that exists? And I feel like we don't have the context for a topic of like, which one is it? So I mean, I don't know. What do you guys?
Well, you could totally. I think like we're this deep in. Oh God, everything sounds like a sexual pun. At this point, that we've got to stay sort of like focused on what we essentially wanted to be, and sometimes. We've had episodes like this in the past where we rate things differently, and I agree that like when I say rate things differently, I mean rate things differently based on thinking about things differently. I'm rating it in one context, Bo might be rating it in another, and this may be what happens here. But I will say that with regards to sexual abstinence, in terms of like positives that I could see, is like I could see a couple getting together and going on dates, and then being like, instead of just hopping into bed together, let's take it slow and all that. In many ways, the concept of taking it slow is in some form of sexual abstinence, and I would argue that that's rarely a bad thing. Getting to know one another before getting it on and that sort of thing
like
is
a
probably
bad deal, because what if they make noises that you can't deal with till death do you part? I mean, among other things.
What do you mean? You're saying like, do the deed early and then get to know each other?
Well, what I'm saying is, it's a pretty big commitment. So if you're purchasing for life, sight unseen, someone that is like hee-hoo, hee-hoo, when they're getting it on.
A donkey? You married a donkey is what
it's not the kind of thing someone's going to be very proud to admit, so probably not likely going to come out until after the marriage. You need to know these things. I mean, it seems counterintuitive to this idea that in a good marriage, in a good union of two people, that you're open and honest, and compromising and sharing things, to leave things hidden until, I would want to disclose as much as possible about how shitty I am before asking somebody, so would you like to be my partner until we put you in the ground? Like that, which is it's just one of the tenets of marriage. So it seems like this is just a lose-lose situation in the name of, what is it, spiritual repression, basically, like institutionalized repression of sexuality.
Yeah, I mean,
it's ridiculous.
I tend to agree, because I do think there's something to be said for just sexual compatibility, and I think that is different than just other types of compatibility. Like, you get along, you like each other's personalities, like those things are important, but it is certainly possible to be like, I get along with this person, I like them, and I could love them or whatever, and then you get in the sack and you're like, something is not jiving in the sack. And it's like, if you found that out after you had essentially committed to like a lifetime together, I feel like that could be a source of constant friction. Again,
this is a very liberal point.
But what I mean is, it's like it could be an issue throughout your entire marriage, where you just sort of, for whatever reason, it's like it can be a challenge. Some people just, I mean, I have not had many sexual partners, but it's like some it's been better than others, and it's not because of like you know what I mean. Like it just
No,
Yeah,
there's a
but
chemistry thing. It's not necessarily one wrong thing with one of the people. It could be both people are fine to a right person, right? Like maybe that sound doesn't matter to one person, but to another person it does. And so you'd want to disclose this information to make appropriate matches. It's just the old version of pairing up with people. It favors the male's agency in it and not the woman's, basically.
But you guys are going straight to marriage. That's the
True.
thing. Like when I said was sexual abstinence in terms of getting to know each other, and taking it slow before hopping in the sack together. And yes, there are a lot of people. It's like first night, whatever. Like, oh, this date went well. This guy's hot or this girl's hot. And there's, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, but like before coming down on sexual abstinence, like while I don't necessarily agree with signing a life partner declaration of marriage without having sex first, I think that that's a little overkill. I would think that abstaining a little bit and getting to know someone first would be my preference in terms of an approach to beginning a relationship.
Well,
But-
that would.
But is that abstaining? I don't think
It
that's the
is.
same.
I think
Wow.
when the two of you, if you have a conversation and you say like, I would like to, and you see these in movies all the time. Let's take it slow or whatever and all that sort of stuff. Often with people who are known to go fast a lot of the time. And so like I think that to a certain extent, if you both want to and you're consciously not for a certain period of time, that's abstaining. What the limits are to that time period, that's a different question. I think it's important that both people in the relationship be aware of that.
But I feel I get you, because there's taking your time is good, and there are different personality types. And again, there's people that want to get it on night one, and those people meet each other, and that's good. And people that like to take their time, that's good. And yes, you could call that abstinence. But I think maybe what we're exploring or getting to is that abstaining is a very conscious choice that has a little bit more meaning than just taking it slow. At least in my mind, taking it slow.
I disagree. I think soon as you abstain, it's a verb. It's if you want to do it and you're choosing not to do it collectively, both of you've had a conversation. Hey, let's take it slow. If you've had that conversation, then you're agreeing to abstain.
No,
to me,
I get
Right,
your,
but if it's
your
like
rationalization
let's
is
abstain for 2 weeks, it's kind of like, yeah.
No, I know. The time barometer is extremely important. But if it's like you wait 4 months or something like that, or and what have you, before you go on, or maybe it's a date limit, or it's like we're gonna go on X amount of dates. To me, that's like, yes,
Okay.
it's planned. It's a planned end to the abstinence, but it's still abstinence.
I mean, I'll concede the point. It is deciding to not do a thing that you might both like to do, or your bodies are telling you to do.
But I feel like, yeah, I
mean-
guess it'd be the only thing where it might be like, any given morning
Sure.
I might wake up and say, I'm abstaining from sex today, and be
I
like,
abstained from
but
sex
if
the
you're
last
not
10 minutes.
abstaining tomorrow, like, are you really? There is a time frame that does become relevant, I guess is what I'm
Now,
saying.
what's if there's a magical time frame? For me, it's just an agreement either with yourself or with other people. It's like if you quit smoking and you're stopping smoking and you're abstaining from smoking for, like until you quit, or I'm abstaining for a day or a week to see how I'm doing. I think there's different levels of abstinence to anything. And I think for sexual abstinence and starting relationships in particular, especially among young people, who are just getting their feet and other parts wet, so to speak, as they start into their sort of sexual journeys or whatever, like abstinence is and this is where it's complicated for me, because it's like, I agree with a relationship starting, two people, sitting down and being like, what do you want out of this relationship? What do I want? Once they're on the same page, and like when, even a candid discussion about like how fast is too fast, and when, and if they both agree, like, oh, it's gonna, 3 months at least, I need to know before I feel comfortable or whatever. Well, to me, that's yes, it's planned, but it's abstinence. Whereas marriage, abstinence to marriage, I mean, I think that that's like, for all the points and more that you guys raised earlier, I think that that's not an ideal situation, and it's putting a lot of pressure, and then it's putting a lot of pressure on a sexual act that will happen many times afterwards. But as Bo said, what if it doesn't go well? And why? What are the merits? Like, why
I
did
just
you not all this
it's
time?
I think it would be. I mean, I agree with people taking it slow can be referred to a form of abstinence, I suppose. I still feel like there's something to the switch point that sort of that brings the scale into perspective of what's like abstinence and what is just taking a break or having a day off or something like that.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with both a little bit on
there
that.
is
Like,
a set of conditions. Maybe you don't call what I'm doing abstinence, even though I am abstain. The verb abstaining would apply in language, but it would seem like that there's a certain set of conditions that have to be met before you decide to do it, which generally speaking is either, I mean, you could say that for medical reasons. I've got an STD that I can't get rid of, so I'm abstaining from sex to not endanger other people. Until such time as I no longer endanger my sexual partners, I will not have sex. So, and that I would consider that abstinence. I think it has to do with that there's a very rigid and specific set of conditions under which that status changes. And so that might mean what I'm doing doesn't qualify as that. And somebody taking it slow for 2 weeks of dating isn't abstinence, and Mike taking the afternoon off from sex because he has it every day but skips a day is not that either.
that's not what I was implying, but I do agree that I think that, like, because taking it
Yeah.
slow, I'm full favor of, and it's always sort of been my way of proceeding is in a relationship as well. And I think there's nothing wrong, but I've never been like I've never thought of that as abstinence.
It's abstaining. It's
Yeah,
like,
no, but
don't
I
put
think
you're putting a label on
right.
on
Well,
something.
but no, but I am, because I think if someone puts a label on it, like it says I'm abstaining from sex, that's a label they put on it. Whereas for me, something like, well, taking it slow and what's the rush is not the same as like, and that
We're
would be a label I
abstaining
put
from
on it.
we're abstaining from sex until we both feel
Right,
comfortable.
right. No, but see, but yeah, again, you're putting a label on it that I wouldn't have. Whereas I think that some people that say we're abstaining, or they take a pledge with their father in front of God in an altar, and say I'm abstaining from sex until whatever conditions are met. That's a different kind of criteria,
Well,
and I think it has different
it's
meanings than just being like, let's take it slow.
it's
Um,
definitely a different thing, like, for sure. uh but I just fundamentally disagree with both of you guys, that like I think it's easy to be like, oh yeah, both agreeing when you're gonna have sex at one point, both agreeing to take it slow is not sexual abstinence. But in my mind, it very much is. It's just a different
I,
time period, and I
I,
have to deal with that in giving my verdicts. Credit to
yeah.
you guys for being able to
What
put it aside
what I would
and just focus on
what I would
other
say to that,
other things.
to explain how I'm thinking about it, and you can continue to agree or disagree. I'm not saying you're wrong. The way I'm looking at it is that we use language to describe certain things, and so you're correct. Deciding to go a week without sex with your wife is abstaining from sex. Like, that is what the word means. I think there is a cultural construct of abstinence, and I think that's how I've parsed it in my mind to distinguish between the two. And we talk about it, where I'm like, eating is eating good, bad, or bullshit. We probably could do eating as a topic, but it's also just a verb to describe things, and so at least related to the abstinence part, I think I'm parsing it like I'm focusing on very deliberate decisions that are proclaimed by the person as I am abstaining, or I'm in a period of abstinence, or I am abstaining for this reason, having more weight and meaning than someone who is very casually abstaining, I suppose. Who is
Well,
technically abstaining from
in that
various
case,
reasons.
going back to Mike's original question about how do we contextualize this and how do we frame this and all that sort of stuff, if that is the case, then that eliminates everything that you said earlier about your personal situation.
Sure.
And
I'm glad I brought it up in that case.
It focuses it very much on like those who wear like abstinence rings and say like, power to the abstinence. We're not doing that. The whole movement, and that makes it a lot easier for me if we're not actually talking about the verb to abstain or the various forms of sexual abstinence. We're talking more about the sexual abstinence movement, and that then leads into the father-daughter thing that I talked about earlier, and in many ways it leads to talking about waiting until marriage and stuff like that. And I think we touched on a lot of those cornerstones, and I would say that I don't see much positive in that way with regards to the idea of sexual abstinence, like making a pledge to your father or to God or to some other sort of patriarchal figure in the case of a woman, to say like, I am not going to engage in sexual relations. That to me, I understand being proud of resisting temptation. Like I get that. I get being like, and I'm straight edge in terms of like not consuming drugs and alcohol and that sort of thing. And you could take some sort of solace or pride in that if you want to. But I don't think that sex is a biological thing, that there's pleasure in it for a reason. Take precautions and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's just because it's so tied up in religion and the concept of purity, especially virginity and all that. And so I think that's all sort of negative bullshit, really.
Yeah. It's
yeah,
funny.
there's a lot of like moral. It's just like, because when you hear the one side of it where they just be like, it's like there are STDs out there, and it's like, yeah, and if you abstain from sex, yeah, you're going to be much safer than if you engage in sex, even if you use protection. That's true, sure. But I feel like mostly the people who are pushing that agenda, it's really more about a moral judgment than it is about like I just don't buy the argument that they're like, no, we just want to make sure our young people don't get these STDs. I really think that there's more about, exactly what you were saying, Croft, and there's a religious component to this all the time. And I think the issue with that is that then it gets tied up with sexual repression, which I think is, you can see all kinds of issues where sexual repression rears its head in really negative ways. And I think of like the church where sexual abstinence is like a cardinal rule, and then you have all kinds of you think of the Catholic Church and just fraught with all kinds of sex abuse problems. And you think like it's all these people that are
well, there's some
sexual abstinence, but it's like and then
it
comes out in really negative ways, because what it is really is repression, and
yeah.
they're not expressing themselves in a healthy sexual way, so they're ending up doing really terrible things. And I really feel like because of this moral judgment and trying to be pure, and it starts in this kind of good place and quickly goes into a bad place. And I really think repression is what it's linked to.
Yeah. It's also a bit of a slippery slope too, because have you encountered it where like, I mean, haven't you heard of people saying, well, it just has to do with regular sex? Like you could get a rub and tug for, and it doesn't count as breaching the abstinence pledge.
What?
Yeah.
What
Or, you get some,
it's true.
You get some,
Yeah,
like anal sex may not apply to the abstinence pledges. Like there's also varying rules about this. Like I'm not just,
people need to
I really wanted to
this,
say,
right?
I mean,
You're laughing, but
I've heard this. This is
right.
real. Yeah, this is real. Like it's not like, that like, there's also certain types of abstinence rules, because the rules are vacuous, even though it's based on it. So the point being that I feel like there can't be much merit to it if there can be that much like compromise with it or whatever. Like, because in some cases it's just strictly straight up intercourse and not so much other form. Like you could have a makeout session. I would argue that makeout sessions are very intimate, neurotic, and sexual, even if. Like like if you're being aroused in your unmentionables in any way, like as soon as it gets touched by another person, even accidentally, is that like a breach of conduct right there?
Well,
So
see, you see, Bo, that's exactly why you need to walk down the aisle with your father and have him spell out all the ins and outs and what have yous in a
Jesus
document,
Christ.
contractually sign it, and then give a pledge in front of God and millions of witnesses.
I would just like to say right now, Bo, if you're gonna have a ceremony with your dad where that's gonna happen, I will be there. I would not
Yeah,
miss it.
that's true. I'll be there too.
Why would I do that?
You
Well,
could
you
be
just
Oh,
said you were in a
because
period of sexual abstinence, but
well,
I don't believe it until you sign a contract with your father
with your
at
father.
an
I'll
altar.
go
so
too.
this is
Also, I'll
I
put
will
it
tell
up
you, I have
YouTube.
a specific there's a specific condition I guess associated with it. It's like when I decide I know what I want from it, and is when I go forward with it. And so
And
I'm on
back,
a quest
then
for
forward
answers
again.
right now, and it definitely, I mean, it's been my observation a relationship can is a lot of work. It may having another person in your life, and I'm a pretty self-centered person, and so
At least you
I
can
I, I
admit that.
I don't well no because I didn't realize that for a lot of my life, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's a family thing. And there are things that I want to do, and I don't need to make someone miserable while I go doing the weird shit that I just want to do for myself. So,
He's talking sexual stuff.
yeah, really, I just want to
No,
sit.
he's in a period of abstinence, Crofton.
But I mean, it's well, again, it's not really sexual abstinence if like because again, sexual abstinence in the purest form means you're also not touching yourself. So you
Yeah.
could say
Well,
that there is zero abstinence happening with me in a certain respect. And I know Crofton's chomping at the bit to make masturbation jokes with respect to me, but hey, man, we all do it.
yeah.
And so that's the
Back to life.
hypocrisy. That's the hypocrisy that I'm driving at over this subject, which is like, what does it even mean? Like, no one can shut off their genital organs unless they're already, you have a problem with your body. And not to make light of that in any way, if your pecker fell off, like, and it's no fault of your own because of medical conditions or whatever, like, but if you have it, I mean, that's actually an interesting question because all of it's in your brain. I wonder even if like you were a eunuch, you would still feel arousal of some kind.
Well, some of it's in your
Yeah,
loins as
hypothalamus,
well.
I believe. But anyways, regardless of all these details that I don't know answers to, it seems to me that abstinence is like fraught with problems. I'm ready for verdict. Actually,
Sounds like you're ready for
yeah,
verdict.
I'm
Let's
ready
bring
for
in the farm
verdict.
animals.
Crofton, have you got everything?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna tell the animals to come on in here so we can deliver some sweet ass verdicts.
Order, I say. Order in the court.
Order in the court. All right. I'm on a tirade, so I'm just gonna continue. All right. I think that's what I feel like
Please
doing.
do.
Yeah. So, sexual abstinence. I mean, on the surface, again, I think if there are very good reasons, and that's very subjective, but I think there are reasons that you would, in the case of the medical reason, for example, abstaining would be a very considerate thing to do. Or, I don't know, I feel like my reasoning kind of holds up, but I'm biased because it's myself that I made the decision for, so it's not a good, I don't think I should sit and judge myself in that way. But I think there are good reasons to choose to abstain. As Crofton pointed out, we're kind of parsing this. There's a way to look at it where, like, taking the day off of sexual activity for some people might be considered abstinence. So that's a very gray line. In the cultural phenomenon of sexual repression, and even as part of sex education, to me, just preaching, like, clearly not doing something will probably not give you negative consequences, so it barely qualifies as sexual education. It's more scolding or commanding. So I think it's very bad in the context of sexual education. Abstinence is. I think all religious stuff is pretty dumb, but I'm an atheist, and that's my particular set of beliefs. So I can't anything that has any rationale in the spiritual or kind of way. I just immediately dismiss, and I feel very confident that that works for me to believe that. So I can see zero good in in the broader context of sexual abstinence. So I'm going to say bad. And yeah, I think I don't think there is a single good reason to deny the body what it wants.
um, Well, when I woke up this morning, I said I was going to abstain from giving a verdict, and I'm sticking to that until actually, you know what? I'm done abstaining. Okay, I'm going to give a verdict now. I wake up every morning abstaining from everything. And so, okay.
Is he trying to troll me right
he's
now?
Yeah, I'm trolling you.
no,
That's literally what abstinence is.
I'll tell
He's
you
just describing abstinence. It's like I'm abstaining from this until I get married. Oh, okay, I'm married now, so I'll do it.
I think
I'm
he's.
like, "Ooh."
I think he's. I think he's.
Anyway.
Oh my
No,
God!
it's not at all. It's the
I
exact
think-
same
So
thing.
that is part of my.
Mike
part of
is
my verdict.
abstaining from being funny.
So okay, I found this whole topic really kind of difficult to talk about because, as me just trolling Crofton pointed out, it's like we were talking about semantics for half of this conversation. And I mean, I know a lot of things are like that, but I really did find that true of this topic. It's just like, what does abstain mean? For what context? Blah blah blah. That's all true, and I agree with that. You can abstain for something for an afternoon. That's fine. There is, everything Bo said about the. I agree totally with the movement is a counterpoint to sexual education. I think is really bad, and I don't agree with it. I don't think it helps young people. So sexual abstinence in that context of counter sex ed for sure bad. Just abstaining from something for personal reasons, I think is generally it's not a bad thing to abstain from anything for a given period of time. And in terms of like entering relationships or having sex with someone, I think that taking it slow approach is generally a good one. But I really do think a lot of this is caught up in moral judgments, and I'm echoing a lot of what Bo says, but I feel like I got to stop a little bit short of saying that it's wholly a bad thing. And I guess I just want to say one, I know I'm a bit scattered here, but I'd say like saying sexual abstinence is bad. It's not the same thing as saying promiscuity is good, or that you're saying be promiscuous, because those are different things. I think that I think it's fair to be like, yeah, you don't have to practice sexual abstinence to be safe and to make sure you're in a centered emotional place before you engage with a new sexual partner. That's all fine. So I don't know. I just found this topic so much like semantics and whatever. So I'm just going to come down and say sexual abstinence is a big pile of bullshit. And I think, yeah, that's where I'm going to land on this one.
All right.
So I feel like I angled it with Bo. Really, I just didn't want to get that harsh on it.
Well, Mike, just give the body what it wants.
You know what? I'm going to abstain from sex tomorrow, and probably the next day.
You could too if you wanted to.
Is your wife within earshot? She's probably like, you know what? You're gonna abstain for a month.
I'm gonna make a commitment to you guys before God and you that I will abstain from sex for the rest of this podcast.
Okay.
Commitment.
Huh? Wait, are you having sex right now?
No, I'm trolling you. Go on with your topic.
Yeah, no, I definitely think like the concept of abstinence again is it's an action that you're taking, and so if you are setting the parameters of your abstinence period, it can be for as long or as short as the parameters you set. What's normally considered the parameter when talking about sexual abstinence is marriage, and after which people waiting till marriage, and the idea about that is I think it's tied up in morality and all that, but it's also tied up, I think, in the idea of that, okay, marriage will be like a safe space where a father feels comfortable letting his daughter go in with this guy who's asked for her hand in marriage, and so he's delivering this girl to the next gentleman who's going to take care of her, and then he can have sex with her. That's okay then. And that's disgusting. Like it's really horrible. And so for me, a lot of what I associate with the term sexual abstinence is negative. But I also wear this other hat of being a father of a young daughter, like very young, and thinking about like, what if she's like 11 or 12 or an age that I totally consider too young to be sort of engaging in this sort of thing, and stuff is happening at school, or I see the signals. Like, at what point is it my responsibility as a parent to like, pump the brakes on that sort of stuff as well? And these are complicated questions, and they're not ones that I necessarily have easy answers to. But I do think the idea of a movement to wearing rings and validating, virginity and purity in the spirit of the church and all that sort of stuff is horrible. It warps people's minds, young folks' minds, and they pass it on from generation to generation. And unfortunately for sexual abstinence, for any positive reason that you might do it, like maybe you're doing it to you're abstaining from sex to build yourself as a person, because maybe you do it too much and you feel like that's going to help you develop. There are positive reasons for engaging in sexual abstinence, but all the negative stuff, all the religious stuff, all the patriarchal bullshit stuff leads me to side with Bo and say that sexual abstinence is bad.
All right. Well, just
There you
Crofton,
go.
just give,
You
Wow, I
can't-
thought that was a twist there.
give your body
We
what
can't
it
all
wants.
like it as much as Mike does, obviously.
Give your
Sexual
body what it
abstinence?
wants.
Oh, you
I got
didn't
more
want-
willpower than you guys. I
No,
guess.
you just-
I'm still held up. The podcast's not over, and I haven't broken my commitment yet.
Oh
No,
my
you
God.
just, all I'm saying is you didn't say it was bad. You're the only one that thinks it's moderately good.
Yeah, well, I also thought it was a semantics mess, which it is, and that's part of why it was
Because
not.
because of who? Mike's first question. Your first question was like, so what is the contextual?
Yes, exactly. That's the whole point. Why
You
it's
did this.
no, but that's why I had to give it bullshit, because the context is super important to this topic. And that's why I couldn't be like,
I
it's
guess
bad. There are some contexts in which it's good still, and I would agree. Like, if you're a sex addict, probably good to abstain for a while until you get your addiction stuff under control.
I didn't think you were saying addiction.
What? Oh,
Until you get your dick
in
under
there.
control is what
Well,
I thought.
okay, listeners. Now, if you can think of something that we miss in this conversation, or maybe can sort out the way to define this topic better, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can go to our website, goodbadbull.com, and from there you can find all the ways to connect with us. Goodbadbull@gmail.com is our email address, and we would love to read a letter you send us on the air. You can also send us a tweet at goodbadbull, or you could like us on Facebook and engage with us there. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, you can do so Google Play, iTunes, and all that. And if you do go on iTunes, you can give us a rating, whatever you want, 1 to 5 stars, I believe, whatever suits your fancy.
I think that's still true, yeah.
Yeah. And we'd just like to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. We have a Patreon account, patreon.com/goodbadbull, I believe. And
sir.
thanks very much to all our supporters. We really do appreciate it. You can go there if you want to help out the show. And guys, if our listeners want to follow each of you individually, Crofton, where can they follow your?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at Crofton Steers, but honestly, I've been abstaining from tweeting for quite a while now.
Yeah, true. I've abstained all day.
Oh,
Bo,
man. I just tweeted.
where can our Bo doesn't abstain from much, so if you want to follow his stuff, Bo, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Bo Schwartz, where they can find my lack of abstinence about tweets. I will say too, just as a quick, I mean, not to get too deeply into it, but I haven't had a drop of alcohol in 2016. I made it the whole year. I can't think of a time I had an alcoholic drink. Not that
You're abstaining from alcohol,
I mean, I'm not
or
I
you
have,
just forgot to drink.
I have nothing against it.
It's too
but-
poor.
Well, no, poor people find alcohol all the time. It's really no excuse.
Yeah, that's true. Poor never do.
Poverty doesn't stop the drink and train. And
He also
like,
smokes cigarettes. So
I mean,
that's the
literally,
financial-
I could ask a person, I haven't had a beer in 2016. Would you buy me a beer? And anyone would agree with that. Like, I could get a beer.
I
so-
abstained from smoking cigarettes this year.
Congratulations.
So here's a
Phil.
question. No, and it's interesting. If like sex, we're all driven by it. It's an impulse we have, right? Like it's in us. But you don't have an addiction to nicotine. So can you abstain from something that you're just not interested in whatsoever and have no chemical impulse to do?
Probably not, actually.
Yeah.
Like I would have to be making an effort, so there'd have to be some level of temptation
Like,
there. And
you're-
if there's
and
none,
we're-
then I mean it's
We're
probably
all cursed with the desire for flesh. I mean that's something we all have.
No, well,
It's Shakespeare
I
said
think
it,
there
right?
are people that lack sexual desire. I don't think.
Okay, we're
but
mostly cursed with it, and a few people are blessed without it.
Bo definitely cursed.
Yeah, more than most.
Well, multiple. He's cursed with the desire of nicotine,
Flesh.
of flesh,
Video
of
games.
yeah, just not alcohol.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
probably good because
I
if
think
he
it
had the
turned
same
out
desire for
okay.
alcohol that he did for the rest of those things, he'd have some problems.
You know, all this talk about flesh.
Yeah.
All right, I
But Mo's like time to
His
get
period of
rid of the
abstinence has
flashlight.
come to an end. He's going to revisit his verdict of prostitution
I'm
being
pretty
good
sure I
and go out
found
on
a
the
place.
street.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna end it somewhere there. All right, live stream viewers. You're killing me. Killing me, Michael. You're killing me.
We got to bring back Smoke Watch.
Live stream viewers, thanks so much for watching the VOD, tuning in, watching us record the show in truly awesome fashion. And thank you. And yeah, hit the subscribe button. All right. Bye.